What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be rating the fuel efficiency of some LEGO Star Wars sets. Let's get right into it. Now, off rip, I think we got a pretty decent one here. The N1 Starfighter. I'm gonna say this is pretty fuel efficient. First of all, it's very aerodynamic. Only one pilot. And if you want to call the Astromech co-pilot, go right ahead. You got one of those as well. Not a whole lot of heavy artillery. Maybe some blasters mounted up front. 2 engines on either side. Help with the balancing. But again, it's very aerodynamic. That doesn't worry me at all. This one, I'm going to give an A+ on fuel efficiency. Next, we got kind of a tricky one, an AT-ST. Off rip, I'm gonna have to say this is not fuel efficient. Number one, it's from the Empire. They're probably not too concerned about the fuel efficiency of their military vehicles. I'm not sure what type of fuel this one is going to be taking. I would assume it's going to be taking something like diesel, but even then, it's probably pretty heavy. 2 pilots, you got some pretty heavy artillery going on the sides and in the middle with those 2 blaster cannons up front. Maybe a little lopsided because of the types of artillery on either sides of the head. Might throw off the balance on this one. It's tough. I do like the AT-ST, but I'm gonna give it a C on fuel efficiency. Maybe a C-. Okay, now we got a classic, the X-Wing. Already, I kind of like this one. Very balanced. Pretty aerodynamic, not as aerodynamic as the N1 Starfighter, but I do like the pointed nose. The shape of the main body of the ship is pretty smooth. The wings don't seem to be too heavy. The only thing I would be worried about are those big engines on all 4 of the wings. That might be holding it back in terms of miles per gallon, but I wouldn't be too worried about it, given that it is pretty aerodynamic and it's not that big of a ship. So again, not too worried. I'm gonna give this one a B+. Okay, now we got a little bit of a weird one here, the Pirate Tank. This one is tough. First of all, not sure on the legality of this particular vehicle. Not sure what type of exhaust system they got going on. Luckily, we're not talking about how environmentally friendly these vehicles are. We're talking about gas mileage. That being said, this is probably horrible on gas mileage. Pretty heavy artillery, especially with the, I guess, big cannon up front, and pretty heavy armor. Not to mention the 2 gigantic engines on the backside. Also, I'm not sure how stable this thing is. It might be a little unbalanced, a little heavy on the backside. Yeah, I wouldn't be happy taking this one to the gas pump. I'm gonna give this one a D. Not good. All right, now we got a weird one. This is a 2-piece. So first I'm gonna address the yellow ship, and then I'm gonna address the green ship. The Jedi unfortunately chose what seems to be a luxury type vehicle. Very heavy, using some premium fuel. At the same time, it's not horrible in terms of being aerodynamic. Engines mounted in the front, pretty decent on balance. I wouldn't be worried about flipping this thing over at all, especially flying through the streets in Coruscant. But again, a luxury vehicle, pretty heavy, probably going to be using decent amount of fuel getting around. I'm going to give it a B. Maybe a B+, depending on what type of fuel you're using, but I don't see it any higher than that. Now, as for the green ship here, much different story, very aerodynamic. It looks like the engine is rear mounted, so better on balance. Not a whole lot in terms of weight. This doesn't seem to be a heavy vehicle at all. The only concern would be the engine, but that's seemingly mounted in either the middle, if you want to consider that the middle, or even the rear of the ship. However you want to call it, it's pretty balanced in terms of fuel that you'd be using. Don't think this is going to be taking any premium fuel. All that being said, I'm gonna give this one an A. Very fuel efficient, in my opinion. All right, another classic that's not gonna help it in the fuel efficiency department. First of all, not sure about the balance here. You have the cockpit on the side. Nothing else really going on in terms of weight distribution on the opposite side, other than that big radar dish. But considering that the cockpit is going to house a decent bit of technology, I don't think that little satellite dish is going to be doing the Millennium Falcon any favors. Very big engine exhaust on the back. I believe this is also, for the most part, a utility vehicle. So in terms of fuel, I wouldn't say that it's, I would wager that this is probably using some sort of diesel type fuel. Very much not environmentally friendly, but in terms of fuel efficiency, I'm gonna give it a C. Maybe a C minus, but definitely a C. All right, a fan favorite, the Republic gunship. Off rip, I'm gonna just say this is pretty tricky. Considering you got a bunch of people inside, you gotta be able to move around and safely at that. So in terms of weight, probably not going super heavy. My concern would be that front end and on the top with those two big long engines. The big wings, not really concerning to me. It's really those big engines and the missiles mounted up top might be holding this one back a little bit. I would probably compare this particular vehicle to like an armored Humvee of sorts, like in the real world, depending on how many people you have inside or what kind of cargo you're running. It really depends. So I'm gonna give this one a range between C and B. You can fall anywhere in there, maybe C minus to B, but that's on the super heavy cargo side of things. So I'm gonna give this one a range between C and B. Next, we have a separatist military vehicle. This is the AAT. Pretty big vehicle, I will say. Heavy artillery, especially on the sides and the top there. Missile launchers along the bottom. It is pretty balanced, but it is heavy. Super heavy. Gonna need a lot of force to get this thing levitating above the ground. This one's tough because I do love the AAT, but I'm gonna give it a D. Next, I think we got another fan favorite here, the Sith Infiltrator. I'm gonna go off rip and say this one is probably a B. It's not that big of a vehicle itself. Not to say that it's tiny at all. Very aerodynamic, very sleek. My only concern would be the center bit where the cockpit is. Other than that, how are we driving this thing? You know, are we driving like a maniac? I'll say this one's pretty decent. I'm gonna give this a B, another B. All right, coming up on the end here, I got another interesting one for us. The Jedi Starfighter with hyperdrive ring. Both of these together, I'm gonna say it's probably pretty decent on fuel efficiency, given that you have that big hyperdrive ring. It probably runs separate from the actual Jedi Starfighter. You're only using this to go light speed to other planets and then eject from the hyperdrive ring and go on in. All that being said, it's probably not going to be that amazing. Given that you're going light speed, probably takes up a lot of fuel. I'm going to give this one a C+. It's not amazing. And now we have just the Jedi Interceptor on its own. These things are pretty small, pretty nimble. You will be driving this one pretty fast, but I think that doesn't really affect the fuel efficiency of the ship itself. These are mainly for the Jedi, so not a whole lot of hardware needed on the inside. I'm gonna give this one an A. And last, but certainly not least, the Executor Star Destroyer. Yeah, this is an F. Horrible on fuel. First of all, it's the Empire. Again, probably not too worried about gas prices. This thing is absolutely massive. Gigantic engines on the back. I don't even know how heavy this thing is. I don't know what's going on the inside. Probably millions of people working on this thing. Absolutely terrible on gas efficiency. This one gets a big fat F. Get this thing out of here. And that's all we got for today. Guys, let me know in the comments which set you think is the most fuel efficient. I want to know what you guys think. And also, did you like the video? I definitely enjoyed making this video. These are pretty fun to make. Just doing something ridiculous with some Lego sets. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.